In the last video, I talked about how losing weight and getting healthy has nothing to do with just decrease the amount of calories you take in. Today, I want to explain why it also is not about exercise more. That has nothing to do with it. So, first, let's just talk about energy. Energy is our basal metabolism, which means the amount of energy it takes for us just to sleep for 24 hours, just to sleep. That uses up 2,400 calories, 2,400 calories to do nothing. Now, and that's because our heart's beating, our lungs are going, our brains are thinking, our liver's pumping things out, our kidneys are filtering things out. There's a lot of things going on that uses energy during the day. Now, when you compare 2,400 calories just for our basal metabolism compared to a workout, when you exercise, even if you do a hardcore weightlifting exercise for 1 full hour, the most you're going to burn is around 400 to 800 calories. That's all you're going to burn. I'll bring this back up of why this makes more sense in just a little bit. So, what happens when your body needs energy? It's going to go for the very quickest energy that it has available for it to it. So, that's going to be the energy that's already in your blood. Okay. And so that's going to be usually glucose. You're going to have glucose in your blood, and you also have some glucose stores that'll put glucose into the blood. However, the glucose that's in our blood normally, we only have about 2 teaspoons full of glucose in our blood. So that's only like 16 calories. So 2,400 calories for our basal metabolism, 400 to 800 for a very hard workout. And we only have 16 calories in our blood. So what our body does then is it goes to our stored glucose. But now when you look at our stored glucose, our liver, it has glucose stores, only about 10% of our liver, but there's only about 400 calories of stored glucose in our liver. Then in each of our skeletal muscles, 1% of each skeletal muscle has its own glucose stores also. And the name of glucose stores is called glycogen. So when I say glycogen stores, that just means glucose. So what happens is your body is going to use the glucose in your blood, and then it's going to switch over and it's going to start using your stored glucose. Okay. Now you have 2,400 calories of stored glucose, like I said. So if you're only burning 400, 800 calories, even in a hard workout, that means all you're doing is burning through your glucose stores. You are never going to get to your stored energy of fat. Because remember, there's two different forms of energy, glucose and fat. Glucose, I am proving that is only supposed to be used for our fight or flight, our quick energy when we need that. But our fat stores are supposed to be where we're supposed to have all the other fat that we burn. And that's the way we're supposed to do it, is burn the fat out of our fat cells for our regular energy. Then we eat, we fill those back up. And then when we need energy, we keep eating it out of our fat cells. The stored glucose is only there when we need very quick energy for fight or flight energy. Something bad happens, we have to react very quickly, and it's going to take energy. That's what that energy is supposed to be used for. But what we've taught ourselves since our dietary guidelines came out, where they're telling everybody to eat glucose constantly and telling everybody that glucose is our main source of energy, preferred source, that is so they can give us more of their glucose foods. That's why they're telling us that. So that is not the way we're supposed to be doing it. So what we're doing is we're working out, we're burning the glucose out of our blood, then we burn the glucose out of our stores. So our stores go back in. Then we're done with the exercise. Now what happens is our glucose has gone low, our stored glucose has gone low. So this makes us very hungry and we want to eat again. And usually when you eat, you're going to reach for the same horrible stuff that has nothing but glucose in it to fill those stores back up. But you haven't done anything with your fat cells. Now, let's switch that over to fat. First, glucose, the only thing glucose is used for is fight or flight energy. Fat is used for all kinds of things throughout our body. It's used for energy. It's used every single cell membrane in our body, every single cell, and we have trillions of cells. They're each made out of fat. Fat helps with cushion our organs, cushion our joints. It helps with our temperature regulation, helps with vitamins, our fat soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K. So we use fat and cholesterol for so many things in our body. Now, when you compare that, if you take all our glucose stores and look at how many calories, that was only 2,400 calories total stored in our fat cells. Okay. 1 pound of fat has 4,000 calories. So 1 pound of fat has more calories than all you're stored. So if you're, say, 10 pounds overweight, that means you have 40,000 excess calories. So you're never going to burn that energy by just exercising if you are a carbohydrate burner for your energy. So when you use fat, what happens is when you use fat for your energy source, you're sitting there and you're burning the fat out of your fat source for energy. Then you go and you work out. So now you still have fat coming out of your fat cells. But the deal is insulin, and I'll talk about this more in a little bit. But when you have high insulin, that forces your body to store fat. Okay. So when your insulin level is high, that means you have glucose in your blood. That's why your insulin level is high. And you're forcing your body to store fat. So you'll push glucose into the muscles and push glucose into the fat to make more fat. However, when you are a fat burner, when you have taught your body to use fat for your energy source, like God created us to do from the very beginning, when you do that, low insulin pulls fat out of your fat cells to burn for energy, but low insulin also pushes fat into your muscles for energy. So if you are a fat burner, if you are used to keeping your insulin levels low, when you work out, you are doing nothing but burning fat out of your fat cells and push that in the muscle cells so they can burn that off. So you're constantly burning your fat out of your fat cells, but you have to be burning fat for your energy source before that happens. Because again, what determines whether you use glucose for your energy or whether you use fat for energy is insulin. So high insulin levels push glucose into the muscles, and high insulin levels pushes fat into the fat cells. It stores more fat. Low insulin burns the fat out of your fat cells, and it pushes fat into your muscles to burn for energy, which is our preferred source. So there's a big difference on whether you are a carb burner and you're exercising or you're a fat burner and you're exercising. If you're obese, that means that you are a carb burner. You are obese because you eat carbohydrates, because carbohydrates are made out of glucose. Okay. And all plant-based foods and all man-made food is made out of glucose. They all have glucose. Now, when you talk about fruits and vegetables, there are some that have more glucose than others. The ones that grow below the ground have a lot of glucose. The ones that grow above the ground doesn't have as much glucose. And everything from man in a box, bottle, bag, and can, that has a ton of glucose. So you need to stay totally away from that. But when you eat glucose all the time, you're keeping your insulin level high all the time. And so all the energy you ever burn is glucose. And that's what you do not want to do. How does your body's blood glucose go high? This is important. The reason why your insulin is high is because you constantly eat glucose, and glucose makes you have high insulin. When you don't eat glucose, you leave your glucose levels low, you have low insulin. So everybody focuses on how do you get the glucose down? How can I get my blood glucose down? That is not the question. That's the question that the drug companies and everybody else keep asking because they want to give you medications to try to bring the glucose down. But the only way those work is they make your insulin higher, which actually makes obesity and type 2 diabetes worse. So the question isn't how do you get your glucose down? It's how do you not get your glucose up in the first place? And the way you do not get your glucose, there's only two reasons why your blood glucose goes high. You're stressed out, so cortisol makes you use your stored energy, like we just talked about with an exercise, because exercise puts you in fight or flight mode. And that's how you burn the stored glucose out of your body. The only other way that your blood glucose goes high is because you're eating it. So if you have trouble with high blood glucose, just quit eating carbohydrates, quit eating man-made food, quit eating plant-based foods, and let your insulin levels come down. Let your glucose and your insulin levels come down. Where do most of this stuff come from? Like I said, ultra-processed foods, box, bottle, bag, and can, that is nothing but glucose and fructose and seed oils. It is absolutely horrible for you. Stay far away from that. As far as natural fruits, there's fruits and vegetables. Vegetables that grow below the ground, like starch, like potatoes, have a lot of glucose. So if you have glucose issues, you might want to stay away from those. And the ones that grow above, they aren't as bad. They have just a little bit of glucose. So that's all you really need to do. If you want to lose weight, it is not about exercising. It is not about decreasing your calories. It's about changing the calorie source. You want to use fat for your energy and not glucose. And you have 100% control over that by what you eat. So just make sure that if you're wanting to lose weight and you're wanting to get healthy, the best way to do that is to stop eating glucose. And remember, if you want to learn more on this topic, click this next video or click the link in the description below. I really think that you're going to find this helpful.